Hi everyone, I'm Jamie. I like to tell bedtime stories to my kids, so I'm gonna break the traditional Ignite presentation style. I'm gonna read you guys a little bedtime story from my big book here. I don't want you guys poking each other or wiggling around in your chairs. Be really calm, and I'm gonna tell you the story. And like all stories, it's 100% true that I tell. This story is called Desperado. In the early 1970s, on a small obscure island located between Hawaii and American Samoa, a young dictator at large was plotting an evil scheme to stamp out American life as we know it. His name was Ayatollah Reggie, but he liked to be called Desperado. And his tiny island, Palmyra Atoll, was discovered by accident on November 7th, 1802. But July 12th, 1960 is the important date to our story. That's when Palmyra became an incorporated territory of the United States and subject to all provisions of the U.S. Constitution, permanently under our sovereignty. Look it up. Being a communist devotee, Desperado did not like the United States and his island politics, and he wanted his country back. Now, kids, our young dictator really hated the reckless lifestyles and free-loving ways of the American people in the early 1970s. A plot was hatched. What was at the core of the American lifestyle in the early 1970s? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. A coup was established to take out all three systematically, overthrow the U.S. government, and regain control of Palmyra. By purchasing hundreds of burgeoning U.S. Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants, the Palmyrians were able to build a massive money laundering operation overnight. Desperado then masterminded a series of fake kidnappings on Iranian soil, causing global oil prices to spin out of control. The Palmyrians then cornered the oil reserves in the Middle East, began importing millions of barrels, partially used to cook KFC chicken, and the coup was launched. Step one, form a faux rock band by finding a gullible group of low IQ, out-of-work, country rock wannabes, but not real hippies because they would be too smart. To be successful, the music would have to numb the minds of Americans everywhere, and not those that just believe in TV, religion, alien abduction, or circuses. The music had to make people brain dead so Desperado could take over the country. It was through a relationship with a part-time LA stripper named Linda Ronstadt that Desperado met a dishwasher on the Sunset Strip named Ralph Kokojit. Ralph was told that a wealthy group of investors wanted to back a new band that completely went over the hearts of America. Ralph was anxious, had zero musical talent, and was paid $387 for his first month of employment, which he quickly spent on marijuana and bathtub speed. Names were changed, and the rest of the band was gathered similarly. None of them had any musical talent. Although Desperado despised the American lifestyle, he secretly understood music and had a classic upbringing in poetry and literature. He started penning ridiculously simple songs that could control people's brains, making them hum along or tap their foot. Under the guise of the Eagles, Desperado turned out a string of ultra-crappy mega hits, each taking our country to new lows. Witchy Woman sent us into the national energy crisis. Take It Easy triggered Watergate, and his proudest moment, Desperado and his self-titled biopic almost single-handedly killed rock and roll as we know it. Completely horrible in its own right, the horrible backlash was possibly the most toxic thing ever to happen to music as we've known. Disco. Obviously, the mind control plot was working. White people rejoiced. Denim sales skyrocketed. Mothers everywhere learned to embroider. The band members were subject to daily shock treatments that largely rendered them completely mindless by 1975. America was falling. That was until the enterprising congressman and a huge fan of the Eagles named Dewey Finchwater started studying a song, Hotel California, closely and discovered the Desperados plot. Once tipped off, Dewey arranged a covert act of Congress. He found an unsuspecting LDS family living in a small Utah town and had the CIA kill them, something the CIA did quite often in the 1970s. Congress spent millions to turn them into remote control robots called the Osmonds that launched and controlled by the U.S. government via satellites. The battle for our country and for our very souls ensued. Now, kids, the remaining part of the story get really classified and quite racy, and it's bedtime after all. So I want you to know that evil Eagles almost ruined rock and roll, and as for Desperado, he actually ended up converting to the U.S. lifestyle he hated so much. He formed a little band called the Coral Reefers, changed his name to Jimmy. He never went back to Palmyra, but he ended up in the Caribbean. Now, I can prove all this is true to you guys. Here's how. You're losing all your highs and lows, Ain't it funny how the feeling goes? Desperation.